So today I'm chatting to Kc Rossi. Kc is a transformative business coach and she resonates with type 2 on the Enneagram. So thanks, Kc, for being here. It's really great to have you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And I wonder if we can start by chatting a little bit around what it is about the two-ness that you resonate most with. What did you, when you found out you were a two, what made you sure that this was definitely your type?
Well, absolutely. Like the considerate helper, even the name, I was like, okay, yeah, absolutely. Because I've been a caregiver all my life, starting from when my sister was born when I was 7, and she became my real life baby doll and was always on my hip. And then I was the town nanny for years. Really, I started babysitting when I was 10 all around town and became like a professional nanny at 18. So I had so many years of caring for people that whole part of being compassion and nurturing and caring was like, oh yeah, that just feels like normal. I didn't realize that was a type.
That's so true. It's often what I notice is that when people start learning about their type, one of the things that they say most often is, are other people not like that? Is that not normal?
Absolutely.
It's such an instinct, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay, and what do you enjoy the most about being a two? What aspects of it do you like?
Well, I would say that people, there's a sense of reliability and trust. And I think that when you are able to show up for them on a consistent basis, there becomes a really sweet, authentic relationship. So I would say that because I love to connect with people and really be alongside their journey, that relationship aspect is something that I really enjoy and I really appreciate. I've always enjoyed going deeper. I've never been someone that's been good at small talk, because I really enjoy going below the surface and really kind of getting to the realness of life and living and its ups and downs. And so I think relationship is probably one of the key characteristics that I enjoy.
Okay. And tell me, what is it like then when you engage with people that don't necessarily have that within themselves, who maybe don't prioritize relationships and connection as much as you do?
How do I relate to people like that?
How do you manage?
How do I manage? It's interesting. I think that there's a couple different things. One, there's choice. So I think as I've gotten older, I've realized that I don't need 100 friends to be happy, and it's really interesting because even in the kind of the age of Facebook and looking at our stats, it's really easy to kind of have that external validation by numbers and metrics. And so one of the big things that I've really realized is I have a solid best friend that we've been besties for decades, and I have a really great partner who's my boyfriend. And many times I'll just step back and be like, that's kind of enough. I've really brought my inner circle in so strongly, and it's just kind of naturally happened over time. And I do feel that you can give in a bigger way when your circle's smaller. I'm certainly not advocating having a circle of 2, and of course I have a bigger circle than that. But I do think that, to your question, how do I navigate if someone is really happy on that surface level? I just kind of choose a little bit wiser now because I'm much more aware of my energy reserves, and I want to connect with people that appreciate things in a deeper way.
Okay. And what was it like when you were younger? So if you say you're pulling in the circle a little bit more and being a little bit more selective, what was that like before?
Oh my gosh. Well, I used to go to camp a lot when I was a kid. And so I love real mail. I still love real mail. And so pen pals were a big thing, so going to camp, in my younger years, that was the biggest thing. Literally even in my teens, I had a spreadsheet of all my pen pals. And I would completely keep track of my correspondence with them. And yeah, it was a big thing. And literally, I think I had almost 100 pen pals when I was 16. Wow. And yeah, it was kind of ridiculous. It was really, but I enjoyed it. it was fun, and I would get letters, and we would send artwork and poetry back and forth. So it was a big part of like my social structure. So very, very differently than now, you know, where now if I had the responsibility to deeply connect with 100 people, that would be my job. You know, it wouldn't be a hobby. That would be like a full-time job.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was the turning point? At what point in your life did you come to the realization that this extensiveness of people, of relating, of connection, of giving wasn't sustainable, was becoming a full-time job?
I would say it was probably about 4 years ago. And I was spending a lot of time on social media. I was kind of falling into the same trap of friend collecting. And I really went through, and I literally, at that point, I think I had 1,800 associates, you know, Facebook friends. And I literally at that point went through and deleted 1,000 people. And I committed to myself that I was only going to keep people that I met, that I had a spark with, that there was some type of real connection, and that I knew who they were. And literally that was no small feat. Like, you have to click like 3 times per person to actually get them off your friend list. So it took me about a week to literally go through each and every single picture and be like, do I know this person? And if the answer was no, I was like, delete. And so I really felt a freedom when I was able to do that and have this turning point, and to really make this commitment to myself that numbers don't matter. It's really depth and authenticity that I care about, and those type of connections are what I want to foster.
Okay. It's interesting that you felt like you had to actually delete those people. It sounds as if you didn't have the connection and you didn't have the relationship that you wanted, you'd rather not be interacting at all.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a firm believer of energy ties, and I didn't want to expose my life and the goings on of my world, or even my family's world. It really started to feel like an exposure. And so why have something if it's not two-sided or fulfilling or authentic? So I didn't want to just have it hanging out there, because I believe that that is an opportunity for a leak, whether it's draining or whether you're just not feeling settled, but you're not sure why. Because the minute I did that, like, things really did start to feel more grounded. And it's kind of like a hose that has a bunch of pinholes in it. The more that we can kind of plug up those holes, the stronger our energy force is, and the more channeled and grounded that we are, and how we show up. It makes a huge difference. And I definitely felt a difference when I did that.
And you mentioned that one of the things that you looked at was the extent to which the relationship was two-sided.
Absolutely.
Can you speak to that a bit more?
Well, I think that in any relationship, like when there's a connection, when we're relating, it is a back and forth communication, at least in my definition of it. So if it is all one-sided, I think sometimes it's helpful to just take a step back and really look at that. You know, what is the purpose of it? Like, who is it really serving? Is it something that the other person would miss if you were gone, or would you miss it if it was gone? You know, so I do think to relate to anything, it has to be a teeter-totter back and forth.
Absolutely. And it's quite an interesting journey for twos, I find, because what I've noticed is that for a lot of twos, there is a period in their lives where there's a lot of relating to other people, serving other people, giving to other people, which of course is fabulous for those of us on the receiving end of it. We love having twos in our lives, so we can see what's in it for us. But I wonder what's in it for you, because we only do things because there's some benefit coming back. What is the benefit for a two in all that giving?
I think being loved, right? I think we all want that, but I think for twos, it's like amplified. You know, I've often joked that, you know, it's kind of like a kitten with milk. You know, you just kind of lap it all up. So I definitely feel that I think it's even beyond being likable. I think with twos, it really gets pumped up to desiring to be lovable. Because likable is just like, likable, but lovable is like lovable, you know?
Yes, it's got such a strong energy behind it, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It's interesting that you run your own business, and you've done for how many years?
I've been an entrepreneur for 27 years in various different fields, but yeah, the bulk of my life.
So that's interesting to me, because I'm very interested to know how a type 2 who has a tendency to focus so much on relationship, on being lovable, on giving so much energy and attention to other people, how have you navigated that in your own business?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think that, honestly, one of the ways that I balanced it for the longest endeavor was with my best friend. And so we had a gourmet foods company that we started from the ground up, and we ran for 16 years. And so she has very different energy. She's very creative and passionate and kind of do then think. And so I was really lucky to be able to have that that other half and that real strong balance to my two-ness. And I also have the strict perfectionist part of me. So I can like spreadsheet, think about it, spreadsheet some more. And so you don't quite necessarily get to where you want to go when you're staying in your head. And so I would have that kind of action part in my partnership where she would just be like, let's do it. And I'd be like, okay, so conversely, when we sold that company and I went off into my own endeavors, I really saw the balance and the benefits of having a business partner that didn't have the exact same skills as you. So now all of a sudden there was a new layer for me to have to go through where it's like me, myself, and I, and you're not really going to get to your goals if you're hiding. Whether it's hiding behind your laptop or hiding behind the stronger personality and just being in the background to support. So it was a really interesting challenge. And it definitely, I think it's still a part of the navigation that I go through. Whether it's self-talk, I do a lot of personal development as well. But I think that when you make that transition, especially because I'm an introvert and she was an extrovert, so there was that yin-yang synergy when I had such a bulk of my experience with a partner that now all of a sudden you've got to bring your own fire. Even though you are comfortable as an introvert, you've got to step forward and do some things that are a little bit more out of your comfort zone. So it's been a little bit of a dance for sure.
It's interesting you talk about relying on a partnership or somebody else, because I think that can be a very helpful way for us to work in a whole way, and also learn from other people whilst we're developing that ability within ourselves. So yeah, I've worked with quite a few twos who have got great benefit from working with maybe an 8 or someone with a very, very strong action center to help them. But more importantly, it's helped them see that it's possible. And then slowly, maybe started bringing in other aspects to help them step out of their two-ness, and maybe assert themselves in a different way.
Absolutely. I'm smiling and giggling inside because I learn a lot from 8s, because they do tend to enjoy being in the front and standing in their power, and boundaries are completely easy for them. And so I'm almost like in admiration when I have an 8 in my life that I can watch them model it. And interestingly enough, even though I am a coach, I'm a firm believer that coaches need coaches. And so the coaches that I have sought out, and I actually have never really thought about it in the Enneagram terms, but they just naturally rose to the surface for me as the best choice. They've been 8s. So I've had a female 8 at the top of the year, and my current coach, who's male, is an 8. And so I really feel that like something inside me knew, like I need someone that can like just bam, this is how it is, without getting involved in the big emotional story and relationship connection and really getting so invested in someone else's situation that you're almost doing more of the work than they are. So I really appreciated having a coach give me that really clear insight. And again, I think it was a way for me to say, okay, well, I don't have a 24/7 business partner, but I definitely can reach out and employ a coach into my world to help balance out some of the 2 qualities.
And as you say, it's a lifelong lesson. So even though we have the awareness, we still fall back into that tendency from time to time. So how lovely to have somebody who's there to shine a light, to kind of help you course correct, to help you observe when maybe that's happening, so that you can
Absolutely
use differently, for sure. So you've talked
yeah
about,
it's
sorry, carry on.
No. All I was going to say is it's an invaluable perspective, because when we're so in what we've known for so many years, even despite having flashes of insight, having it be modeled or having that value of a different perspective, it is really something that I've really relied on and appreciated so much in my life.
We all need that, don't we? We all need the awareness of how it can be done differently. And it doesn't mean that we change personalities overnight, but it just means that we can borrow little bits from other people and then find our own way of doing it. So for you can still be a beautiful, healthy, integrated two who just happens to be pulling in different aspects.
For sure.
You were speaking about some of the things that maybe a two struggled with in business. So, for example, maybe the taking action part, maybe the boundaries, maybe the tendency to focus so much on relationships that one gets almost caught up in the stories around that, or the emotions around that. What would you say to someone who is starting out their business as a two and doesn't want to necessarily fall into the typical two traps? What is the advice that you would give them?
Absolutely. So some of the things and like tips and tools that I have really relied on are establishing the clear boundaries right in the beginning, and really setting up, like if you're going to be working with someone, say one-on-one, or if you're you're at a point in your business where you're even bringing on independent contractors or employees, I think it's so important to establish the agreements right in the beginning, and don't leave it to this willy-nilly, oh, I like them, or they're my friend, or we get along fabulously now, nothing's ever going to happen. I think it's really important to just put that business hat on, and also that boundary mindset right in the very beginning. I wouldn't wait until something goes awry and then go, oh crap, I wish I had something in place. Why didn't I think of that? I think that we always wish for the very best, but then also life and business isn't this straight line of trajectory. It's kind of a windy road. And whenever we're in relationship with other people, we have to keep in mind that we're all living in our own paradigm, right? So I may look at something and you may look at something, and we're looking at the exact same thing, but we're coming at it from our own filter. And so we're going to be looking at it in a very different way. So I find that what's been really helpful, and I've really started to instill this in the last year, are establishing agreements right in the beginning. So if I'm going to be working with a one-on-one client, it's just a really simple form. It's not a bunch of legal mumbo jumbo, but it's just a simple form. Like, these are the agreements that I agree to show up and fulfill in our relationship. These are the agreements that I also have from you. And we talk back and forth. And if they want to add something to it, awesome. But it just kind of sets up the relationship in a way that there are boundaries. And it also sets it up in a way that there's this professional respect. And I think that secretly people like to have the boundaries. You know, it may seem more casual and chill and like, you know, this is like the new way of business, to be loose and just have this trust. And, you know, I work with a lot of people that are into positive mindset, as am I, which is awesome. But I still think you need that masculine side of things that has more of the metrics and the linear and the agreements and contracts in place as well. So that would definitely be one tip that I would recommend new business people, or business people as they're starting to grow and bring people on. Never assume that they're in your mind looking at the exact same thing with your eyes. So having those clear communications right in the beginning, I think would be a big tip.
I think that makes so much sense, for sure, because the way you've described it with so much focus on relationship, I'd imagine it's easy for those lines to get blurred, and something goes a little bit off in the relationship, and without that clear boundary or clear contract in place, then what? Then it continues in a relationship space, but now in a not so positive one.
I agree. And I think that not only if your listeners are a 2, that they may struggle with the boundary piece because they want to be likable. So boundaries feel like, ooh, that feels kind of hard or rigid, and I don't want to be looked at, in a certain way. But I think the other layer as a female entrepreneur, that also adds this other piece of wanting to be the caregiver, the peacemaker, the nice, smooth and easy, avoid negative conflict. So we almost have these 2 things kind of going back and forth. So I do think it takes some dedicated effort to not be like, it'll be okay. I mean, if anything happens, I'll deal with it then. I do think we have to really be diligent about, okay, I'm in business. I want to go pro. This is just something that is helpful for business. And it doesn't mean that we have to become somebody that we're not. It doesn't mean we have to all of a sudden have this boilerplate canned version contract that doesn't feel in alignment to who we are, but we can do it in a way that both serves that loving, giving warmth, and also has a container for all of that to kind of reside in. So we're catching both sides.
I love that. I love that you say we're not going to change who we are, nor do we want to. But that we can be an and. We don't have to choose. We can be kind and generous and caring and have boundaries. They're not mutually exclusive. Love that.
For sure.
The other thing I was curious about is that you talked about hiring coaches. How easy or difficult was it for you to accept or admit that actually you need some support as well?
Yeah, really an amazing question, because I think having had so many years of entrepreneurial background where you're the cook, chief, and bottle washer, and everything is I'll figure it out. I was a huge DIYer for years and years. And a lot of it is because as you're growing, you don't really have the finances to bring on a team. So I think that it was a little bit of a something because, one, especially for me individually, because I have the wing of a strict perfectionist, it's I'll just do it. I can do it right. It's going to take so much time for me to get people up to speed and train them. And then I'll have to review it anyway. So I'll just do it. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. So I think that at some point you have to kind of lay down the ego a little bit and realize that, there may be people that can even do a better job at you, because we all have a zone of genius and we can't be a genius in all the different aspects and arenas of life. So I think when you kind of settle into what lights me up the most and what could I get support with over here, I think that is kind of a key. And the other thing is, once you do it once, you start to see the relief, and you start to be oh my gosh, I have freedom. And this is really working smoothly, especially if you set it up right in the beginning and really outline what you want. And I think that's the impetus to even employ more support, is when you start to see I have an extra 4 hours on my Saturday because I actually hired this out, if you're bringing in employees. And then on the other side of getting direction from someone else, I think that for me, I'm a huge advocate of business without burnout. And until you've been there, you don't even think about burnout. So, it's funny because I just had someone recently say to me, we don't sell prevention. Prevention doesn't sell. So for me to kind of use that as a big key of my business, unless you've been fried and have had burnout, you're going to be yeah, whatever. But because that I have had adrenal fatigue and I have struggled with those 2-ness boundaries and taking on so much and overloading my schedule and having challenges with saying no because I want to please, I've had years and years of that pattern. So I think because of that, because I've really experienced the burn, adrenal fatigue and burnout, I've really kind of come to the point in my business where it's I can't serve my people to my best ability unless I'm healthy and bright, unless I'm sharp and on it. It's just not going to be an optimized, mutually beneficial relationship. And I think when you know that, you realize that having support or guidance, they're really a sign of strength instead of weakness. And that was a big turnaround.
A sign of strength and not weakness. That's a huge realization, and I think one that's difficult for a lot of people. And yet, as you say, when you came to that realization, what a sense of relief. Almost, why on earth didn't I do this years ago?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the ability to ask for help, or any other aspects of the two-ness, for example, how does that translate into your personal relationships? So friends, family, your boyfriend, how does it show?
Yeah, I think the same thing. It's really like, okay, for years, it's been, I got this, no worries. Like, even if it's just like, what can I do? Can I set the table? Or, no, you just sit and relax. I think the other thing too is people want to help, and I think that if you are truly at the high side of two-ness, where you're being in tune with the other person, that person actually wants to show their love to you. So it's like, if we're saying like, no, I got this, you're almost limiting an opportunity to go deeper with that person. And so I've really, really seen that. So it's like, now I'm actually like, also part of my like love lesson language is people like doing little chores for me. So now I've really embraced the fact that it's like, if my boyfriend wants to stack wood, amen, hallelujah, like have at it, like if my bestie wants to help me frost the cupcakes for an event, I'm just like, here's the piping bag, and it's really cool.
And I can see then when you started saying that you are looking for fewer relationships that are more two-sided,
Yes.
and deeper level to them, it seems that that's what you're referring to, I can give, but I can also receive.
Absolutely. Yeah. It feels like you can have a much more authentic, deeper bond with someone when it is that flowing back and forth, and knowing when you can step in and give, and also knowing when to recede back like a wave and just receive.
Thank you, Kc. I think you've given us a beautiful view of life through the lens of a two. And
my pleasure.
Kc's details will be on this page. So if you want to get hold of her, find out more what she is brilliant at offering, then all her information is on this page.